Y'all, today is a spectacular day, and why is that? Because officially, after days of farming, I'm finally fully level 180 geared out on one of my wizards for the first time. And the last time that everybody was doing this, right, there was a level cap increase, people were getting all the max level gear. There was a lot of critiques about how tedious it was, how little of a gear upgrade it was. And now that I've been through the experience, I thought it was a great time to compare the Darkmoor gear grind compared to Wallaroo and what things have improved and what things are worse. This should give you a really good picture of like the state of the game and where things are headed, in my opinion. But let's talk about what's different in Darkmoor compared to Wallaroo, because the differences are massive. First off, let's look right at the numbers, a side-by-side comparison of the shocking abomination suit to the reverse suit. 2 years ago, when Wallaroo came out and they made a gear set, a lot of people did this side-by-side with level 160 gear to Wallaroo gear, and what they noticed was very, very small increases. Now, Storm was notoriously the worst affected by this, but this year they've done something which I actually think is pretty cool. If you notice, the big reason you'd want to upgrade from one set to another is actually the health and the resist, right? 5 resist on a robe, 100 extra HP damn near, and also just a little bit of added, like, you know, utility with the balance blade item card. This is much better to farm for on a Storm compared to when Wallaroo gear first came out. It's actually a meaningful upgrade. This is not something that a lot of people are talking about. They didn't just do this with the robe, they did this with other pieces of gear like the boots. As y'all can see, pretty massive increase in terms of HP and resist. While yes, Storm is already a pretty low resist school, in more, you know, situational things like PvP, you'll go against a lot of people that'll pierce through your resist anyway, but the actual gear is much more worth it. Something that I did not expect because of how many people were saying it wasn't. And as far as the badges that you have to get to craft some of this stuff in the Outsiders camp, the actual number of clears to do the most important fights, which I would argue are the Greyman Golem and Balor, they're honestly pretty low. You only have to do 5 to get these badges. The drop rates for these also seem a lot higher than I've been used to anyways. Now, the weird thing about comparing this to normal end of world gear is that most end of world gear like really is hard to get because like of the final battle that you have to do. But compared to Novus and compared to Wallaroo, which are very tedious end of world things, not only do you have to defeat the end of world bosses less, they're actually much quicker if you have a good team. Balor, if you have a decent Storm, you can actually speedrun the damn dungeon. It takes like 15 minutes maybe. Greyman's Golem, I would say it's a little bit more annoying if you don't know what you're doing, but also just to need 5 is kind of crazy. What I really like about the way these badges work, if you just do the Greyman fight and the Balor fight, you literally have the badges to craft everything for your school with only the exception of the ring and the amulet. For the amulet, you got to do the Hierophant. For the ring, you got to do a side quest called Sister Sanderson. But literally being able to craft every single major upgrade other than maybe the ring, I'd say the ring is the only upgrade you don't have access to with just those 2 badges. But basically being able to do that with just 10 fights, some of which could go really in your favor and even give you the drop that you're going for, honestly, not a bad situation. However, we do live in a world where a lot of people, they got a lot of IRL responsibilities. A big critique, even with this update, even with all the improvements, is that things feel a little bit more tedious than they need to be. And I think that really boils down to a really weird change that they did after test realm, meaning they had it in one way in test realm and they removed it for live realm. But basically, right, we had another big upgrade from Wallaroo in test realm that no longer exists because this didn't make it into live realm, and that was the fact that you could make any jewel in the game basically through one character. They had that for the first time ever. It would have been really nice, especially if you had a lot of characters, but what I'm basically talking about, right, there are some jewels in the game that are school specific. I think the big ones are going to be the damage jewels. I think that's what I guess the pins as well, but I would say the damage jewels are the big one. But how these were in test realm was that, let's say you were a Storm, you could still make a fire school only jewel and just transfer it over to your fire, meaning unlike Wallaroo, you didn't have to get the badges for every single one of these on every single wizard that you were trying to get it on. And that is easily the one quality of life update that I think they completely missed the ball on it. Like, they had it in the system, they had it ready to go, and I guess for some reason they decided that it was better to just make the badge requirement lower but still make you do it on so many characters that you end up needing to fight it way more anyway. Right, if you only needed to do this, let's say the badge requirement, instead of like, you know, like let's say it wasn't defeat Balor 5 times to craft the hat boots, and the wand. That's what it is right now. Let's say that it was 15, but you could craft any school's wand, boots, or hat, and also all the jewels associated with it. Then you would have no real reason to do this badge again on any other wizard. If it covered everything, gear and jewels included, then I feel like I wouldn't even care if it was 15, because then I could just do it on like my main wizard. Now we're stuck in this weird middle system where actually, if you get the badges, you can craft gear for other schools, right? Like, so let's say I had this badge on my storm. I could craft, like, let's say I got the Gray Man badge, which you need for the robe. I could craft the Chilling Abomination suit for my ice using the badge on my storm. While that exists, the second you think about things that are more school specific, like health jewels, which are certain school only, or maybe circle jewels that are certain school only, pins that are like that, then you just have to get all of these badges again. I think Wiz had a great opportunity to not go that route with Darkmoor, especially considering that's how it was in Test Realm. There's been a lot of people saying that that's actually their major big issue with the tediousness of it all. The other issue, obviously, is that the actual crafting is a little bit less, you know, viable because of the fact that there's an extra rare reagent that you need to craft everything. I already talked about this in a video, but basically there are people combing empty realms for aged ichor, which is like a rare harvest from regular ichor. There have been people botting for this reagent. There are people fighting over it in empty realms all throughout the outsider camp. It's honestly ridiculous. So it is a mixed bag. The badges are very, very easy to get, but the actual pity system that's involved, right, and being able to craft anything, you have to get a lot of rare reagents, and that's not even counting all the combat related drops that you also have to get. These drop 6 or 7 at a time, even against the Gray Man Golem and Balor, which are the best dropping bosses. So unless you got like double reagent or something, it actually is hard enough to accumulate these. I don't know why they have to add this to the equation. So overall, the big takeaway, accessing the pity system is a lot easier. The actual drop rates for the bosses are a lot easier. And on paper, you probably do have to farm less bosses, right? Because so many of the drops are just from a couple. And all of that is for gear that, especially in PvE, is a big upgrade, right? You're either getting a lot of offense if you're not that much of an offensive school, or you're somehow getting tons of defense if you're on a school like Storm. That being said, I still think they missed the mark in making the badges more widely usable, making the reagents way too annoying to get to make the pity system even worth it. So we're stuck in a situation where actually farming the boss is way more rewarding than just getting the reagents to craft. That's something that some people prefer, some people don't. But in review, y'all, I do think this is a pretty big improvement from Wallaroo regardless. Like, if you look at the complete picture, you are getting better gear. You probably have to farm fewer things, and honestly, at the end of the day, a lot of these bosses aren't as hard as the Nightmare. So in a lot of ways, it does seem that Wiz is moving towards a direction anyways where things are a little bit less annoying to get. But what I really hope that Wiz doesn't do is just say, okay, now we've settled on this, people are happy, people are getting the gear. I still think they've really fallen into the trap of making things really tedious in places they don't need to be. This little reagent issue and the fact that badges can't be used for other schools when they were in Test Realm, in my opinion, are big things that they just need to look at. Is it really right that we have 7 wizards sometimes and we have to get all of these badges on every single wizard every single time there's a level increase so we can have full access? Like, at a certain point, I feel like that gets kind of crazy. And if that was the only issue, I wouldn't even care because that's not different from Wallaroo. But they did that in an update where they added a rare reagent to all these recipes. It makes it hard for me to actually appreciate all the other things that they did that are favorable. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on this. I definitely wanted to make this video now that I finally started getting a full gear set on one wizard at least. But what has y'all's experience been? Have y'all just found yourself farming way more than crafting because of how these things are? Are y'all annoyed at the fact that you have to get these badges on everyone? Or do you guys think that's actually good game design? And what do y'all think of the overall upgrade from 170 to 180 compared to the same thing that we did back in Wallaroo between 160 and 170? Is it a better upgrade? I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts in the comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub review. Hopefully this was an informative comparison of how it was compared to how it is now. But stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.